Good. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Drop in the Gloves. Thanks for joining us here on a nice sunny March day. Tim, how you doing?
I'm good. I've had a bit of a day and a night. I won't get super in the weeds, but I think most people know that I am a freelance marketing website person, and we launched a website last night, or we intended to. And the idea is that you typically do it like after hours, just in case anything goes wrong. It doesn't happen during business hours. We get together with like their internal IT guy right at 5 o'clock, doing just the steps of like pointing the domain from GoDaddy to the new website instead of the old one. And then he accidentally like turns off everything. He deleted their email servers, all him, like on his computer. And he's like, oh shit, sorry, I'm swearing. He's like, oh my God. And then, so he was like up all night with GoDaddy support because it's a common scam to say like, hey, I own this website. I got locked out. Can you get it to me? Like, you really have to prove identity and everything. So we're waiting to hear back from him. And we're thinking that he's going to say, hey, I got everything back up and running again. Let's launch the website now. But he didn't. And then this morning he said, hey, I got everything running and I launched the website. There's some things wrong. Can you guys fix it? And I'm like, dude, now it's 9 o'clock in the morning. I have other stuff going on. Like the CEO of the company is looking at the website not working. You shouldn't have done this. This is their own internal like head of IT. You should know better. So we spent the whole morning working on it, and I had to like go back and forth and just tell them, make sure that the people in charge knew that this was not my issue.
Oh, no.
So it's been a headache, and I've been dealing with that all day. But other than that, I'm doing good, John. How are you?
What's the website so we can all go look at it?
I will not say that. I will not say that. Maybe on Slack, the slackers, we call them. So we'll see.
Speaking of Slack, we just released the Marc-Andre Fleury interview on there. A little bonus
Yeah.
for people who are a part of our Patreon. And it's a small little nominal fee to be a part of our Patreon, but that's what we're going to start doing. I'm going to try to do an interview a week now, moving forward, with or without Tim, and we'll release it on Slack early, just to get a little preview. Like they've been listening to Marc-Andre Fleury for 2-3 days now, getting a little inside peek and stuff that maybe we cut out that didn't make the show and stuff like that. So it's an interesting or a little perk for being a part of our Patreon membership. But I had a nice night last night. It was I'm Catholic. I think most of you know it was St. Joseph's feast day. It was a solemnity here in the church. So we kind of let loose a little bit. We went to our church. I actually gave a little talk to everybody about fatherhood, this and that. It went well, quick one, 10, 15 minutes. And then my priest invited me over and a bunch of other guys to his house for cigars and steaks and some bourbon and some just nice conversation. And it was nice because I'm usually around my kids, and it was nice to get some and there was some high level theologians and like high level talk. You would have loved it, Tim. It was some incredible stuff. So, but I looked at my phone. I was like, damn, it's like 10:30, and I got to drive home. And I step outside, and there was a massive snowstorm. So I drove home, going like 15 miles an hour, reeking like cigar smoke. It was it was a night, and I just never do that anymore. It was nice, felt good.
That is nice. Yeah, I like that kind of stuff. I have a group that we're starting down here that we're going to be doing a close read of Plato's Republic, one book at a time all year. Just one book per month. It's like dense, obviously heavy reading, but it's important, and it's very similar to the Catholic canon and similar values and principles, and a lot of them play off each other. So it's cool.
Wow. All right. Well, now that we've bored everybody, let's get into the NHL. We've been kind of tiptoeing around the standings. We've been doing fun shows, Q&As. Lo and behold, Tim, I was just kind of bouncing around and checking stats and this and that, and I came across something really interesting. I've been a big Montreal Canadiens proponent for the last couple of years. I always think they're ready to take that next step. I always like their roster. Their defense has always lacked. And I said they need something on the back end. They seem to have really good forwards, good first line, some vets down the middle. They have decent wingers all over the lineup. Nothing on the back end. All of a sudden this year, this rookie comes out of nowhere, and he just lights the world on fire. And everybody makes fun of him, Lane Hudson, because of the head fakes, because he's tiny. He's the smallest defenseman in the NHL, 5'9", 162 pounds. He's tiny. He's like my right leg. And it just got me thinking, the rookie class this year is pretty good. And when you look at years past, it hasn't really been that strong. The early 2000s was the heyday of rookie classes. So I think we were spoiled, Tim, in our era, because you have Ovechkin and Crosby, then you got Malkin and Kopitar, and then you got Kane and Backstrom and Taves, and it was a really strong draft class year after year after year. But the last few years, it hasn't been that strong. And that's why I think this year's class really stands out because last year it was Bedard. You know, it was a lot of fun. He kind of paced everybody. Then Luke Hughes and Brock Faber had a great season. And I think you're seeing some of these guys starting to play better this year, the Marco Rossi's, the Logan Cooley's. But last year overall, it was Bedard's year. And everybody else was kind of chasing him. The year before that, it it was Matty Beniers. He had the big breakout season, but other than that, maybe Michelli, McTavish, Wyatt Johnson. You're seeing the players kind of break out now, the Jack Quinn, stuff like that. But this year is different. I feel like we're getting a strong showing of a lot of rookies who are leading their team, who are making a difference, not just being secondary type players. And it starts with Lane Hudson. I feel like he has really changed the way we look at this Montreal Canadiens team. He has him humming on the power play. He's playing big minutes, and he's coming through, and he's not making these typical rookie mistakes that you see a puck moving defenseman make. A guy who has the puck on his stick all the time. I think his puck possession for defensemen, he's third in the league behind Makar and Roman Josi. And when you have the puck on your stick that often, Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar, he's third. You see mistakes, you see turnovers, you see mismanagement of the puck. And Lane Hudson doesn't seem to be doing that, Tim. I don't know if you follow him too closely. I do, because I was all in on this guy right at the start of the season. I was very encouraged to see him in the lineup and getting big minutes. I said from the outset, put him on PP1 instead of Mike Matheson. They finally listened. And now the power play is playing really, really good. You saw Patrick Laine directly just get impacted by Lane Hudson being injected into the top of the power play. But anyways, have you seen this kid?
Obviously. Yeah, he's unbelievable. And it is kind of like he was sort of a hockey meme for the first month or two of the season because he was doing all this fancy stuff and it looked flashy, but it almost never led to goals. He was putting up some assists but wasn't scoring any goals. And he kind of represented like that new age defenseman. And I think, while you were talking, I think one of the reasons that we're seeing the rookies do so well right now is because it's not just their own talent, although that's certainly a strong class and this is a great group. But I feel like the way that the NHL has changed is making it easier for rookies to make an immediate impact. Because of the two main differences between the NHL and like other leagues they're coming from, whether it's NCAA, juniors, or Europe, is that it's faster, but the gap for speed is a lot smaller than it is for the gap for like skill and size. And then physicality, but the league's not as physical as it was 10, 15 years ago. And so these kids have the speed, they have the skill, and they don't have to play a game that dominates them and have men like just push them around the way they would have when you were a rookie. So they're able to adjust more quickly. And I feel like Lane Hudson's a great example of that.
Yeah. And he's just taking advantage of the era that we play in. And I feel like with him, like, gosh, he's going to break the rookie assist record for defensemen of all time. Larry Murphy said it years and years ago with 60. And obviously Chelios and Suter and Lidstrom, 49, 50, 55, respectively. Lane Hudson has 48 in 16 games. This is a second-round pick.
16 games
like
remaining.
This is
yeah.
What's that?
16 games remaining he's got. So he'll...
Yeah, there's a good chance he breaks it. If not, maybe ties it. But he's playing fantastic. Sorry, it looks like you were going to say something.
No, he's playing great. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. And yeah, I mean, even if he doesn't, he's already in that like rare air of like, look at the names you just mentioned. Even if he doesn't break the record, he's in a group with Larry Murphy and Chelios and Suter and Lidstrom, and he's doing it at a super young age on a team that wasn't supposed to be very good. And he's a huge part of the reason they're in a playoff spot right now.
Yeah, and he does have some misgivings. He's obviously struggling in the defensive zone. They do a good job of protecting him. Martin St. Louis, his starting zone rate, he goes against the hardest line almost never. He's playing against second and third line guys. He's consistently starting the offensive or neutral zone. He's protecting them, which he should. But when you look at the elite defenseman, his size, the Cale Makars, he's always getting the toughest matchups. He plays a ton of minutes. He's all over the ice. He's better. But with a guy like Lane Hudson, you try to guess where he's going to go. Because don't look now, but I think 5-6 years ago, Shane Gostisbehere was in the same position. This young rookie defenseman coming in, moves the puck incredibly well. The one knock on him was his defensive responsibility and how he can handle playing in the D zone against men, against NHL-sized guys. And it hasn't really worked. He hasn't progressed. He hasn't worked on his game. But the same thing was said about Quinn Hughes in Vancouver a few years ago. This guy can't do it. He's all flash, no substance. He's not going to be good in the D zone. took that to heart, changed his game, and now he's one of the best all-around defensemen in the league. So we'll see where Lane Hudson goes. I don't know. Hopefully he can work on his game in his own end, use his speed, use his agility to his benefit in the back end and make it work. But the reason he doesn't score is he's got a terrible shot. Like he's got an absolute muffin. I think he's got 5 goals, and 3 of them were passes that just deflected off guys' skates and sticks. So he's really only had 2 goals that he meant to score this season, and the amount of shots that he gets, it's incredible. But what he does do that I really, really like, and I played with the Brent Burns when he was a young kid in Minnesota, so I've seen good young defensemen who are excitable, who like to get up on the rush, who like the deep guys. Burnsy would turn the puck over all the time. That's why they moved him to forward for a while in Minnesota. It just got to the point where it's like, we can't trust you on the back end. You need to change your game. He wouldn't do it. Lane Hudson doesn't do that. There's an interesting stat where he's had 129 zone entries into the offensive zone. So 129 times this season, he has been carrying the puck into the offensive zone, which in itself is incredible. He's played, 60 games? That's 2-3 times a game. He's the one leading the rush. Of those 129, 118 are successful. That's a good rate. He's only turned it over 11 times. And of those times, 16 times he's passed it into the slot for a grade A chance. Those are elite numbers. I know it doesn't seem like much, but that's an elite number to be putting down. Like you're in the category of Makar, those types of defensemen when you enter the zone with the puck and not turning it over. He's just a kid. He's 20 years old. So it makes me excited for the Montreal Canadiens, and he's going to make the playoffs this year. He is not single-handedly, but he has definitely helped this team get back on track. Where a few years ago it was like, what are we doing here? Let's touch on a couple other rookies here that just are making this rookie class very exciting. Whereas last year, I wasn't even excited for Bedard, to be honest. I wanted him to get 100 points, and he kind of let me down. So let's start with the other first number world pick, Macklin Celebrini in San Jose. I saw him firsthand. The comparisons are rightfully there with Connor Bedard and Sidney Crosby. They do all the same things. They're young. They're short. They're stocky. They're strong. They're dogged. And the thing with Celebrini does that I don't think Connor Bedard does, the kid's all over the ice. He's a bulldog in the defensive zone. He hounds the puck. You can tell that he cares about every zone on the ice. Whereas Connor Bedard kind of picks his spots. He, doesn't really try too hard on the defensive end too much. He's all go in the offensive zone. But Celebrini, Tim, the kid's fantastic. Like, he's playing great. He's second for points in rookies right now. He's leading this Sharks team that has obviously are a bad team, but the promise is there. Am I wrong?
No, and it's funny because we've been talking about the comparison all season, and I think right now, until I'm proven otherwise, I think Celebrini's better than Bedard. And someone, I don't know if it was in our Slack or a response on Twitter or something, but someone asked the question of Bedard is not playing as great as we hope, but he's on a bad team. He has bad teammates, bad linements. He's doing the best he can. Celebrini isn't surrounded by a ton of talent. He's got Will Smith, right, and that's fun. But Will Smith isn't obviously lighting the world on fire. And yeah, he's got Toffoli and he had Zetterlund until a couple weeks ago. And there's some solid pieces there, but it's not like he's surrounded by a bunch of talent and Bedard isn't. But yet Celebrini's putting up solid points and he's exceeding expectations. And I think he kind of does. I think he does a little bit more without the puck too. So there's a whole lot to be excited about, and he's already proven that he's going to be a franchise player for this team and get them, turn this whole rebuild around a lot quicker than we thought.
Well, yeah, Mike Grier has done great with this team to turn it around and kind of get rid of those bad contracts and turn them into draft picks and just money. So it's been really, really fun to see. And then the next guy on the list I want to talk about is a goaltender. Kind of a strange circumstance for a rookie goaltender to come in and just wrestle the net away from the veteran and run with it. Typically, when we see goaltenders enter the league, they take a while to find their footing. It's one thing for a player to transition. The speed is the same. You got hands always. You develop that at a young age. The transition is pretty easy. The shots, the passing, everything is better in the NHL. It's hard for a goalie to take that step. And Dustin Wolf of the Calgary Flames has done a tremendous job. And he's not going to a team that's really high-end defensive. This is a team in Calgary that gives up not a lot of chances, but they're always losing the shot battle. They're always playing from behind or 50-50, so they never really have a lead. They never score any goals, so Dustin Wolf goes into every game knowing that he can't let up more than 2 goals or they will lose. The Flames offense is atrocious. And let's be honest, they've scored the least amount of goals in the league. Their power plays lackluster. They don't have that factor. So this kid's stepping into a situation knowing that I gotta put up a 2 or less in order for us to get a win. And he's arguably one of the top 10 goaltenders in the league. His save percentage is great. His goals against is great. He gets a ton of shots against every single game, and he's holding down the fort. So in my eyes, this guy, the Calgary Flames, have found their next Mika Kiprasov. You can lock this guy in for the next 10 years, and he's your starter, which is exciting for this team because they have a ton of cap space coming into next year. They have a lot of money to spend, and they needed a guy in the net because they've been struggling, Tim, for how many years now to find that guy to take the net. And it's him. It's Dustin Wolf, 23-year-old kid, making 850 for the next 2 years, drafted in the 7th round, and it's just worked. He's playing great.
Yeah, and one of the recurring questions we come back to every now and then is like, which players rely the most on which teams rely the most on a single player? And right now, you have to say that Dustin Wolf is in that category because you look at their offense, they're not scoring a ton of goals. They're not going to have a guy that hits 60 points this year, more than likely, and
Yeah,
yet they're still in the
outrageous.
playoff hunt. They've lost you know what I mean? Like, I think they've lost two. They've only won 2 out of their last 11 games or something. Like, they've really skidded recently, but they've been in the playoff hunt all season long. And if they get back into that picture, it's going to be on the back of Dustin Wolf. And he's doing it as a rookie. It's just incredible.
All right, who else are we going to talk about, Tim, for rookies?
One of our favorites, Matvei Mishkov. And this is one that, I think it was Buchacross that we had on. We talked about, we liked the way that Torts was handling him because an older, I would say younger Torts, but Torts of the older days struggled with guys that were kind of offensive only, and he's holding them to different standards and wanted, you always use the Gaborik example, but he's really let Mishkov play his game. And even when he speaks to the media, which kind of assumes that he speaks to Mishkov the same way, he's like, hey, I know you can do these special things that other guys can't. I don't want to cut you off with the knees by sticking to certain things. Like, I want you to be creative. I want you to be creating offense in different ways. And he's really encouraged that. And I think that's important, especially for a rookie who's still learning his game, still growing into his body. And he's put up a lot of points, and he's going to put up a lot more. And I feel like if you look at some of the underlying stats, some of those advanced stuff, it says that this kid is already like on the edge of superstardom, and he could be above a point per game player as soon as next year. And this is another situation where it depends on what they put around him. The Flyers have had a lot of roster turnover in the last 18 months, and there's going to be a lot more coming, I think. But if he's got some pieces around him that he can play with and a center he can count on, this is the guy that could be, an 80-point player next year and a 100-point player within the next 2 years,
Yeah, he has that potential. And this is a guy coming out of Russia who was breaking records, Ovechkin and all these high Nikita Kucherov records, and Russia under 18, Russia under 16. He's putting up 100 points in 26 games. Like, he's dominant. And so when you see that type of player breaking the records of those players, you get excited. And so when he came over, the excitement, the expectations were there. And to translate the success from the KHL, which is a completely different game than the NHL, just the way the game is played, it's different. There's more defensive responsibility. It's tighter checking. The ice is smaller, so it's really a different game. That's why when you see North American players go over there, they have a hard time adjusting to the differences, and vice versa. When a young Russian KHL player comes over, it's difficult because you're used to having all these open spaces, not a lot of back checking, just a free flowing game. And in the NHL, it's very condensed. You don't have a lot of open space unless you're Connor McDavid and can just get away from anything. But he's done a good job. And then to compound that, your coach is John Tortorella, who holds everybody to the highest standard. And if you don't march to the beat of his drum, you will not play. And we've seen that this season where Michkov just pushes back a little bit. And then Torts does like that. He likes players to push back, but then he pushes back even harder. And you're either going to be a healthy scratch one game, or you're going to be benched for, a period or two, or he's going to send you down to the fourth line. So messages are being sent. This 20-year-old kid is still trying to figure out where he fits on this team and where his career is going to go. But for the most part, he's got like 47 points in 67 games, but it's those flashes, Tim, where you go, this guy's good. And then he's got that grit to him too. He's got that pushback that you don't really see a lot from Russian players. So I think he will be good. The next couple years will be very telling for me. Like I know Celebrini will be fine. Like he's going to figure it out. It's Hudson and Michkov. How are they going to take the next step? Is Hudson going to really work on his game, or is he going to continue to be the head fake specialist and just try to do that same thing over and over again? Is Michkov really going to take the next step and be an all-around player and really be dominant? We'll see. But they have the talent. The potential is there. And I don't think for all the rookies in years past, I was excited as I am for this class. You have a potential Vezina winner in Dustin Wolf. You have an MVP candidate in Macklin Celebrini, and you have a Norris Trophy winner in Lane Hudson. And then you got the Rocket Richard winner in Matvei Michkov. It's a pretty good top four, and there's other rookies out there who are having impacts. But these guys, you got to be excited. And for these franchises, Tim, Calgary, San Jose, Montreal, and Philly, which one is the biggest impactful player on that team, in that franchise, do you think?
Well, I think right now it has to be Dustin Wolf because he's, like you said, he's keeping them in the playoff hunt, and I feel like his team is relying on him more than any other of these examples. Of the other three, though, and maybe just if I'm thinking forward a little bit, I think it has to be Celebrini. I think Celebrini is potentially a generational talent. Time will tell, and I try not to because then you go okay, Crosby's generational, McDavid's generational. Is McKinnon? Maybe not. Maybe he's elite, but not generational. And then you can argue about that. So I know it's kind of a loaded term, but I think Celebrini could be that guy.
No.
And we'll see that more than – you don't think so?
No, I don't think he's generational. Just even your rookie year. Like Celebrini, he might get 60 points. Crosby and Ovechkin both topped 100. Their rookie season.
Yeah, different days.
Like I just think we use that word a little too liberally. Like a generational talent is once in a generation. And how long is a generation? 30, 40 years? You know? McDavid was generational.
I think in
none
sports
of these guys
terms,
are.
It's typically a decade. I think
is it a decade, a generation?
Well, not really, but in sports, I think it is.
Then he's not even that, because in the last 10 years, it's just it's a term we throw on loosely. Like Patrick Kane could have been arguably a generational talent.
Yeah.
But he's not.
Yeah, he wasn't.
Like he's just a very, very, very good player. Crosby and Ovechkin, yes.
Yeah.
McDavid, yes. These guys know. All right, moving on. The biggest impact, and I talk about Lane Hudson, and I pump the tires of him all the time. The reason I do that is because I do enjoy the Montreal Canadiens. And let's take a glance at the Eastern Conference right now, because Tim and I were talking before we came on. It's refreshing. It's nice to see some fresh blood enter the chat. And to get rid of the Bruins, the Rangers are potentially going to miss the playoffs, and replace them with some good, young, exciting talent in the Ottawa Senators and the Montreal Canadiens and the Columbus Blue Jackets. Teams you're not so familiar with, but teams, if I'm in the NHL and I'm a GM and I'm sitting here in the 1, 2, 3 seed, maybe I don't want to play the Montreal Canadiens. Maybe I'd like to dodge the Ottawa Senators because they're going to be jacked up game one. And do I really want to face a Nick Suzuki, a Uri Slafkovsky, who are just amped up to be there, a Brady Tkachuk, a Tim Stützle? That's a scary proposition for me. And to be bounced in the first round by one of these young teams is a very real chance for these wagons up top in the Washington Capitals, the Tampa Bay Lightning, those types of teams, because you're in for a dogfight if you fight these teams. And what's Ottawa doing, Tim? How are they doing these days?
Well, it's funny. I looked this morning. It's not true anymore. But last week, I think like Thursday or Friday, I saw a tweet that said the Maple Leafs were more likely, according to Vegas odds, to make the playoffs than the Senators by a little bit, by 10, 15%. But the Senators were more likely to make the second round than the Maple Leafs, which I thought was really interesting. So that's not true anymore. I looked again this morning, but I think it's important to talk about what they've done over the past few months, because we always say every year, where you are and who you are at Thanksgiving is like the 75%, 80% likely of who you're going to be when the season ends. And there's a couple teams that have proven this wrong. And this is all since December 1st, which is after Thanksgiving, obviously. Ottawa was 15th in the East, 15 out of 16. 24 games played since that time. They're 10, 12, and 2, 22 points. -5. So this is at the time, -5 different goal differential, 5 points out of the wild card. They were just horrible. Canadians were 16th in the East, last place. They had 24 games played. They were 8-13-3, 19 points, -25 goal differential, 8 points out of the wild card. Over the past 3.5 months, 43 games each have they played. Ottawa is 26-14-3. They're +10. They're in the first wild card spot. They have 94% odds to make the playoffs. Montreal is in the second wild card spot. They're 25-14-4, +9 over that stretch. They have 34% odds to make the playoffs. It's obviously a big drop off from 94, but that still puts them above the teams behind them, which includes the Rangers and the Islanders, who are right there, and then a couple other teams that have, single digit percentages. So they've turned their seasons around completely, where you would have completely written them off and say another lost year for Suzuki and Caulfield, another lost year for Brady Tkachuk and Batherson and these guys. And they've righted that ship, and I think we're going to see them in the playoffs.
Yeah, I hope so. I think you're absolutely right. I just want to go back to the 75% at Thanksgiving. It's pretty spot on. If you go the East and the West, the only two teams in the East that are different, you take out the Rangers and the Bruins, and you add the Canadians and the Senators. And in the West, the only difference here at Thanksgiving this year, it was Winnipeg, Dallas, Colorado, Vegas, Edmonton, LA, and the Wild and the Canucks were in the wild card spot. And at Thanksgiving, it was I read the last one. It was the Jets, Wild, Stars, Knights, Flames, Kings, Avalanche, Canucks. So the only team that's jumped in has been the Edmonton Oilers. So that's like, I always scratch my head when I heard that. I'm like, really? December 1st, these are the teams that are going to make the playoffs? That's for real, and I've only played 23 games? It plays out pretty accurately throughout the whole season. It's amazing that you can get that sense that early. But to go back to your point, it's fun. The run that these guys have been on, the confidence that you see with them. And the Four Nations Cup was gangbusters for both of these teams. They've been playing great since the break. You look at the Montreal Canadiens coming out of the Four Nations Cup. Nick Suzuki is first in points of all the NHL since the Four Nations Cup. Caulfield has been on fire. He's on pace for 41 goals. He doesn't stop scoring. Sokowski's got 8 points in 7 games. They've been playing really, really good, Tim. And what does Kent Hughes say about Cole Caulfield?
Yeah, he was on Frank's show the other day, and he was talking about part of his success is his working with Marty St. Louis. And this is something we've been kind of talking about since St. Louis came on, because they're such similar players, not only in playing style, but obviously physically. Short, strong, overlooked, underrated, playing a little chip on their shoulder. And St. Louis is the perfect coach for Cole Caulfield. And then one of the things they've worked on is receiving passes on the backhand and other offhand situations and turning that into offense right away. So that's on the backhand, retrieving pucks on the rim and the boards, corralling passes that aren't perfect, and immediately getting a shot on net or a good pass. And that's obviously worked because it's generated offense. And that's one of the things in Cole Caulfield was, like, he's a goal scorer. But what is he doing when he's not scoring goals? He's building that part of his game. And if he can continue scoring, I don't even need 40. 40 is great. But if he's a 30, 35 goal scorer every year, as well as being a complete player, he's going to be scary. He's going to be a part of Montreal's success for a long time.
No, you need him scoring goals. That's where I disagree with you. Like I'm
that saying 30 or 35. I don't need 40 every year from Cole Caulfield.
Okay. I guess Suzuki's a goal scorer. Sokowski's coming into his own. That could be the most dangerous line in hockey in about 4 years. Sokowski's still 20 years old. He was in the same draft as Lane Hudson. Talk about knocking out of the park the Montreal Canadiens. That's like a Norris Trophy and just a moose up front who's very hard to handle. And they got Demidov, Reinbacher, Haig, Fowler. Tim, this team could be dangerous in the next 5 years. And they finally figured out their goaltending situation since losing Carey Price. It's been an up and down. Jake Allen, who was going to play net. Samuel Montembeault, I like this kid. And that Dobesh young kid is playing really good too when he sees some time. So Montreal Canadiens, Ottawa Senators, signs are pointing up. Don't look now, but in 3 to 4 years, the Leafs will be on the downward swing. These two teams will be pacing hockey in Canada. It won't be the Canucks. It won't be the Oilers. It won't be the Leafs. It'll be the Montreal Canadiens and the Ottawa Senators. How funny is that? It's great for hockey. All right, what else are we talking about, Tim?
Well, the one thing I wanted to ask about before we move on from them, just because we like talking about the playoff implications, and this is
Hmm.
changing, day to day. But do you like Montreal at all to make any noise? And it's going to be Washington if they manage to sneak on, and I hope they do because I don't want to see the Rangers, I don't want to see the Islanders. I'm bored of those teams. Do you like them to win a game or make it a series or what?
Again, this is, and you were in the same train of thought as I am. I don't trust the Capitals. There's nothing, and let me preface this: there's nothing that they've done this whole season that would warrant me not trusting them. They've been consistent, steady as she goes the whole season long. They are tops when it comes to defense and offensive. They're top 10 in both categories. Their power play is fantastic. For whatever reason, I don't trust them. So, yes, to answer your question, I do think they would give them a run. I do think that's a beatable team. And I don't really have any good reason behind it. They have good goaltending. I think Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren have played great. Their back end is fantastic. The additions of Matt Roy and the additions of Jacob Chitrin are playing out fantastic. They got a power play guy in John Carlson. I, I just don't know why, Tim. For whatever
Dubois got
reason, I
60 points. Yeah.
yeah, Protus is playing great. Wilson's fountain of youth. The Russian machine just can't stop scoring. If he doesn't get injured, he could be leading the league in scoring goals. Ovechkin, like
Do you
it's
remember
crazy.
the very first Winter Classic? What was that HBO show? Right when it was it Bruce, the coach there, and he's talking about, and this is the Caps and the Penguins, the two best team. This is prime Ovechkin, prime Crosby, and he's talking about, hey, this is a team that won 50 games last year. Talking about how good the Capitals were, and it was like Backstrom and Mike Green and that group, Holtby and all that. This team's going to win 50 games this year, and it's weird to think about them as the same echelon as that team when they were like the top of the NHL, but they're the top of the NHL right now, and I know there's probably Caps fans that are pulling their hair that we're not taking it seriously. Send us a comment, email, whatever. If you convince me, I'll read it on the show because I would like to understand and be proven why that they are as good as the standings say they are. And for whatever reason, we just don't believe it. But doctors, prove me wrong.
Yeah, I don't
Okay,
know.
let's get into some quick hit stuff before we
Well,
wrap
let's
up.
just touch on. We talk about teams that are succeeding. Can we just dump on Iserman a little bit?
Okay, it's been a week since we've done that, right?
They've
So we're
lost 8 of their
overdue.
last 10. They are in an absolute tailspin. Peter Mrazek has been playing piss poor, and I don't think Craig Smith has a point yet. And those were his two big pickups at the deadline. They're going to finish mid to low of the league, so they're not going to get a lottery pick. They will just be in no man's land, probably with the 12th or 13th pick in the NHL draft. What are we doing here? Like, what are we doing if we're the Detroit Red Wings? It's just mind boggling. A once promising team that had so much to look forward to, lots of money to spend, some prospects to build around, and it's frustrating when you see the Canadians succeeding, the Senators succeeding. At least you know what? At least Stevie Y can look over and say, "Yeah, Buffalo sucks too. They were supposed to be good. At least we're not Buffalo." You can say that, and that's hard for me to say. I'm going to Buffalo in a couple of weeks to do an event and sign some autographs, kiss some babies. I love myself some Sabres, but they can say that. At least we're not Buffalo.
It was always the Red Wings, the Sabres, and the Senators. Which one of them is going to take that step first? And it was the Senators. They've
You
won
were
that
right.
race. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to make some noise in there, and I'm excited. They're already my team. I talked about that in Slack the other day. They're my playoff team if things hold, at least in the East. I think they'll be a lot of fun.
And it's funny how you need that one player. And it was Brady Tkachuk. Like, he's the guy who changed the culture and has dragged them to the playoffs. Detroit doesn't have that guy. You get to Brinkett, he's not that guy. Larkin is not that guy. And Buffalo, you thought you might have had it in Dylan Cousins, and you gave him to Ottawa. So, like,
By the way,
Tage
since the
Thompson, no.
trade, he's like first in points, first in faceoff wins, first in zone possession on the team. Like it's crazy what he's doing. He's playing so well there.
And
Um,
Josh Norris hates it in Buffalo.
yeah,
He does. Like, the
yeah.
cameras are on him. He's just not having fun. I don't know. I like Buffalo. I had a great time there, but yeah, it ain't working, Sabres. It ain't working. All right,
Well, one
let's
other
do some
team
quick
I'll
hits,
touch
Tim.
on real quick
Oh,
are
go ahead.
the St. Louis Blues. That's kind of the team to watch in the West. And I think that was my prediction of like, hey, who wins this wild card race? I picked the Blues. They're 9-2-2 since the Four Nations break. And I think
Wow.
Jordan Kyrou is second only to Suzuki in points during that time. He's putting up almost 2 points a game. It's crazy what he's doing. And they're the same amount of points right now as Vancouver. They lost the tiebreaker, so they're out of that second wildcard spot. Vancouver has it, but they've won 3 in a row. They keep doing it. And Jordan Binnington, I don't know, as much as we like to dump on him, he's playing really well. So I hope the Blues continue. And they're one of those, like, imagine winning the West and your prize is playing a red hot St. Louis Blues team. It's not a fun matchup for anybody.
Yeah, they did. They have a solid team. They have the veterans scattered up and down the lineup, but I don't get the same worry playing them that I would with the Montreal Canadiens
Oh,
for
I'd take the
whatever
Blues over
reason.
the Canadians.
Yeah, I'm not as worried about the St. Louis Blues if I'm who's the first place in the West. If I'm the Winnipeg Jets, yeah, I'd rather play the Blues than the Canucks. To be honest with you, the Canucks have that Quinn Hughes, Pedersen, like they have some dangerous players. I'm not as worried about Robert Thomas and Nick Leddy.
Yeah, fair enough. Hockey East awards were announced earlier this week, and the two winners are both
Oh no,
products of Boston College and Boston University, both draft picks by the Washington Capitals. Ryan
yeah,
Leonard, Player of the Year; Cole Hudson, Rookie of the Year. Ryan Leonard most likely will be joining the team for the playoff rush. And I think we mentioned this, but one of the reasons they didn't make a bigger splash is because A, it's working, don't mess with it. B, they know they have a Ryan Leonard coming in. And he's going to be one of those guys that makes an impact right away, too. Like, I wouldn't expect the moon for him right away, but he's going to help this team. He's going to play in the top 6. He's probably in the second power play unit. He's a legit good player right now. And just what a future this team has when we thought they didn't. And they were old and slow and on the decline, and they've stayed good. They've stayed relevant while also extending their pipeline of young players on the team right now and the up-and-coming prospects. It's really exciting for them.
yeah. This guy is just an offensive dynamo. We saw what he did in the under whatever tournament at Christmas. He's incredible. So to pick him up, and you know what, I'm going to give it to you. He is going to make a huge impact on this team, in my opinion. And it might have been a good move for the Washington Capitals to stand pat. Knowing that you have this guy in your bag, you put up almost 50 points this year for Boston College. He was incredible at the under 20s. He was just the World Juniors. He's always played fantastic. He's shown nothing but being a dominant player wherever he plays. So I was wrong.
Well,
You
and
were right, Tim.
just for context, last year Will Smith and Cutter Gauthier were both still at Boston College, and Ryan Leonard was the third behind them. He had 60 points. Gauthier had 65. Will Smith had 71. And this year, Ryan Leonard has 47 points in 35 games played. Like he's the real deal. He's up
Yeah,
with
he's
those
a good
guys,
player.
if not maybe better.
You think he slides right in on that second line? Dylan Strom, Connor McMichael, and him bump Tom Wilson down, or there's lots of
I don't
options.
know.
They have good players.
Yeah, it depends on whether they want him to play center right away or not. But they've got a few good centers already, so they probably
They
won't.
do. That's a tough pill to go right into a down the middle in the playoffs. That's maybe too much for the kid. All right, what else, Tim?
The last one here, Pete DeBoer said there's a quote unquote real possibility the Stars will play the first round series without Miro Heiskanen. He was obviously injured and has not been back. I don't know. Is that a huge deal, John? Like, it depends on who the matchup is going to be, but he's a big part of their team, and they're not going to have an easy first round.
Colorado Avalanche. They're going to play the Avs. It's a massive deal. Like it's a huge impact to this team, and they did what they could at the deadline. You can't replace a Miro Heiskanen. They used his money to go get a Rantanen, but boy, oh boy. Like that, imagine going out and swinging for the fences and get that Mikko Rantanen, you get Mikael Granlund, you get Cody Ceci. You can't do it without Miro Heiskanen. Not versus the Colorado Avalanche. They're really going to rely heavily on Thomas Harley and Esa Lindell. I don't think it's enough. He is one of those guys who impacts a series, Miro Heiskanen. He can shut down guys. He moves the puck so well. Who's your 1-2 matchup? Who are you gonna pair up with McKinnon? Is it CC and Lindell? Is it Lyubushkin and Harley? Is it Matt Dumba? Like you don't have that pair that can keep up with that first line of Colorado. So it's a big deal, and that's a huge loss for the Dallas Stars because it's just like you got McKinnon, Nichushkin now, and Brock Nelson. Good luck, man. Good luck. It's a huge. Who hit him? Who was the guy who kneed him again?
I don't remember. I'll look it up, but I do know that like right now that's is the first round matchup. But you also have the Minnesota Wild that are right there, and it's very close. So you don't know whether or not the things could change, and they sneak up into that second, the second spot, and the Avs dump down. But yeah, most likely that is the first round matchup.
Well, here's the case then. 'Cause so if you're the Dallas Stars and you see this matchup and you know you won't have your number one defenseman, maybe you start resting guys. You have 15 games left. Maybe you tell some guys up front, you know what, we're going to take a break, and you start throwing games. Not so subtly, not obvious, but you know what, we're not going to address Robertson and Hintz. We're going to let Matty Duchene get some rest. We're going to, get Ranton and let him go find a house. And all
It
of a
was
sudden you look up in the standings and now you're in the first wild card spot. And you still play the Vegas Golden Knights. Rather play them than the Colorado Avalanche, in my opinion. So
yeah,
there's no good answer here, but boy, that's a tough one when you lose your 1A defenseman.
it was Mark Stone that he collided with, or
You
that
said that.
collided with him, I should say.
Dirtbag. That's
Uh,
right. He dove at him. I remember it now.
yeah, Mark Stone. That's it. We got Flurry coming out tomorrow. Anything else, John?
No, everybody have a good weekend. It's exciting. The Marc-Andre Fleury interview was fantastic. He's a Hall of Famer, first ballot. Check it out tomorrow, and we'll talk to everybody on Tuesday next week. Cheers, everybody.